We have with us Dr. T.C.A Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan. Sir, is it right to argue that analysis of India-China connections should extend beyond the frameworks of nation-state or bilateralism? Do you think India and China interactions in the broader context of Asian history is an interesting area of research?
No, I would entirely agree. I think both India and China through history have been much more than entities defined by their national borders. They have been, in the broadest possible sense, civilizational states. So their interaction should certainly extend beyond the confines of state-to-state interaction. And state-to-state interaction would be essentially economic, political, security-related issues or a certain amount of cultural interaction. But the nature of both the Chinese and the Indian civilization and the role they have played in history means that you have to look at their interface in the broadest possible terms. So I would entirely agree.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable inputs.
Thank you.
We have with us the author of the book, The Crossroads, Kashmir, India's Bridge to Xinjiang, Professor Kulbhushan Warikoo. He is the editor for the Himalayan and Central Asian Studies Journal. Sir, given the current state of India-China relations, do you see any prospects for Kashmir's restoration of trade and cultural relations with Xinjiang in the near future?
It is a good question, and the book itself is it throws open the legacy, historical and cultural legacy of close contacts, both cultural and economic, and even diplomatic, between Kashmir and Xinjiang from early times. So, as per the trade data, authentic trade data, trade statistics, drawn from British official reports of the British Joint Commissioner posted in Ladakh, Leh, which was the center, rather gateway to Indian trade with Xinjiang and vice versa. So the British had posted their officer, a joint commissioner known as Joint Commissioner in Leh town. And since 1867, we have the official authentic records, what was recorded in Leh, coming from Xinjiang and going to Xinjiang from Ladakh. So based on that, we see a thriving trade between India and Xinjiang through Kashmir and Ladakh. Well, the trade ceased to function after 1949 when Xinjiang was formally incorporated into Communist China, and our consulate, we had a full-fledged consulate, Kashgar, and it was closed. All remaining traders came back in 1949 up to 51, and the flow of trade stopped altogether. So the book is revealing the context and the contours of this vibrant economic and also cultural relationship between India and Xinjiang through Kashmir and Ladakh. I believe that if both countries pursue the objective of reviving this traditional historical trade and also cultural links, it will be a very big confidence building measure and will help in easing up and softening up the tense issues between both countries. It should be beneficial to both. First, number one, Ladakh, Yarkand, Kashgar route, it should be thrown open. Now there are several routes. One route is already opened through Pakistan occupied Kashmir via Gilgit and Kashgar. And I must point out, I was myself surprised to see the figures in 1936. The annual trade turnover of Ladakh trade with Xinjiang was 2 million rupees then, whereas the trade turnover, annual trade turnover of trade that goods that passed through Gilgit and Kashgar, it was 0.1 million. That is 20 times less than what we had. But now see if the more tougher and difficult terrain from Gilgit to Kashgar, via Mintaka, Xinjiang Pass, if it has been overcome and turned into a major Karakoram highway and now is being upgraded as this part of the CPAC. So why India should shy away from reviving its, and I believe China, it should show magnanimity, they should help it in reviving this historical cultural trade. Besides, there was very thriving cultural bond between Ladakh and Tibet through Leh, Tamchuk, Gartuk, Lhasa, and even up to Kailash. Indian yatris and pilgrims would go to up to Kailash from this side, and the Buddhist pilgrims would go from Leh, Tamchuk to Lhasa. Similarly, Tibetans would come into, and many goods would come from Tibet into, and you will be surprised to know that even Xinjiang goods would not reach Tibet directly from China within, but these would go to Tibet from Ladakh, via Ladakh. So, because there was no direct highway between Xinjiang and Tibet. So, these two steps would be definite boost to improve our relations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable feedback on the book. And to know more about the book discussion, please do visit our YouTube channel and other social media handles. Thank you. We have with us Shri Jayadeva Ranade, President, Center for China Analysis and Strategy. Many argue that Buddhism has become a part of broader soft power competition between India and China for greater influence in Asia and beyond. How do you see it?
I would say that there are elements of the competition that have crept in now. There is, of course, let me preface that by saying that there is no question of a competition, considering that Buddha received his enlightenment in India, and it has been a thriving religion. In fact, it has spread across the world thanks to Indian rulers, I mean like Ashok and the others. So to that extent there is no competition. But after the issue of the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama has acquired importance for the Chinese leadership for domestic reasons, I think they have stepped up a campaign to try and bring on board Buddhist communities of other countries, whether Theravada or Vajrayana, and trying to bring them in so that the reincarnation of the 14th Dalai Lama, whom they prop up, will be acceptable to all of them. They have already tried that with the Panchen Lama, whom they have brought in, unsuccessfully. So to that extent, there is an element of competition. I don't think in India we should look at it as a competition. But yes, there is, at the same time, I would say, a kind of effort to revive Buddhism in India, or a revivalism of Buddhism in India. It had sort of become, it had declined a lot. I think now the effort is to try and see whether we can get back some of those values.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your remarks. Thank you. We have with us Dr. Ashok Behuria, Senior Fellow, MP IDSA. So what are the strategic implications of pursuing CPEC in disputed areas where the game changer narratives of CPEC is fading away?
You see, CPEC is basically riding on KKH, which is the Karakoram Highway, which was built in the 1950s, and after that it has been on the run, as a concept. And when KK was conceived, we also raised objection to it because it was passing through the disputed territory of Gilgit and Baltistan, and the CPEC was basically a facelift on KKH, and now it is being partly made, not partly, it is the flagship project of BRI. The Chinese are calling it the flagship event. So that means they are putting a lot of investment into it. Already $64 billion has been promised, and they are looking at the stage 2 of the execution. So if you ask me whether there is a strategic implication, and what is the strategic implication of routing it through a disputed territory, I would say that they do not look at it as a disputed territory, and they look at it as a territory which has been already taken over by Pakistan. So that is why I would say the Chinese are trying to look at it from a different perspective, and they are looking at it as a strategic terrain, a strategic project, which will bind Pakistan and China much closely together. So if you ask me whether it is going to pay Chinese well, I think we have to wait and see how it unfolds. There are rumors of China getting disenchanted with this kind of an investment, but at the same time the Chinese appetite to turn Pakistan into a client state remains. And this kind of investment also shows that China is not going to stay away from investing in Pakistan. They have already invested about $24–25 billion, and they are investing more, and they will continue to invest. And mind you, CPEC is actually 90% of CPEC is outside Gilgit-Baltistan. So it's not a corridor, so to say. It is a massive investment on power projects, on transportation and communication projects. They have also built this what is that called, some cables. They have optical fiber cables. So it is a communication network which is also being built around CPEC. So CPEC is going to empower Pakistan, going to enable Pakistan to an extent that it will be much more developed country and permanently indebted to China. That is how it is being looked at.
Thank you, sir, for your perspective. Greetings from Indian Council of World Affairs. I am Avni Sablok, Research Associate at the Council, and I have welcomed you to a sneak peek to a book discussion on the Crossroads, Kashmir, India's Bridge to Xinjiang. We have with us Dr. Athar Zafar, Senior Research Fellow at the Council. He focuses on Central Asia and the Caucasus region. Sir, do you see the book authored by Professor Warikoo contributes to the study of inter-regional interactions in the past in the Eurasian region and helps us in understanding the current developments from India's perspective?
First, thank you, Ms. Avni, for having me here for this. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. The book, from my perspective, helps understand the developments in the past and also links it with what is going on in the current scenario in the region from India's perspective. So first I will cite the example of cultural interaction which has been mentioned in the book. It starts with the intense cultural interaction with which our region Kashmir had with Xinjiang, and how philosophies, Indian philosophies and great personalities, for example Kumar Jiva, he attracted not only students from Xinjiang but also other parts of China and the region. The second aspect I will discuss about this trade interactions and economic engagement in the past between our region and the Eurasian region closer to Kashmir. So the examples have been mentioned there in the book, that how Indian communities along the Silk Route was not only trading but also settling in different cities in Xinjiang and other parts of the region, including in Central Asia. And not only they were trading and creating interdependencies but also enriching each other's culture and traditions. As far as the third aspect, which is the geopolitics and current situation, the book highlights how the colonial era politics, the great game between the empires, British Empire in India and the Russian Empire, how they impacted and continue to impact India's interactions with Central Asian region, with Eurasian region, and how it is in a form having influence on our relations with Pakistan and China. So overall, I have found this an interesting read. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.